If you enjoy what we do at Sweater Weather, remember to hit like and subscribe and consider supporting us on Patreon.
So yeah, like if you want to take the business line of like, oh, we need to run the country like a business. Well, when debt is this cheap, businesses take it. So why should the government of Canada not to be able to do the same, right?
Very good point. And that metaphor, I love that metaphor, that old chestnut of neoliberal reforms. Yeah, or it's usually like a household, right? You can't, like as a household, you can't just take on debt, all this debt that you can't pay back. But obviously, I mean, I kind of, of course, like households don't have a printing press, they can't just, they just can't type in.
You don't tax your children.
There's lots of ways.
You should, but you don't.
Yeah, the metaphor doesn't quite hold up a lot of ways. But, all right, so let's move on. Okay, let's move on to the last topic that we had planned to talk about here. So this is about Canada's wealthy, the richest families, right? So my question is, who are the richest people? How did they get rich, and what should be done with them? And I just want to I don't hope this doesn't come off as too mean-spirited, but I have to point to two of Canada's greatest failed children of wealthy elite, which are the Bronfman sisters. I don't know, Tyler, if you know about their involvement in that NXIVM cult. Have you heard about
right?
These?
Yeah, I only briefly. So, and I'm part of that cult, so I shouldn't comment.
So all right, so I don't want to be too mean-spirited here because these are women, and I should really just talk about, I guess, Claire Bronfman, because she's the one who has been convicted to nearly 7 years for her involvement in this cult. Now, I don't want to be too mean about women maybe who are clearly troubled, right? But they were personally funding this cult to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. There are a couple of documentaries about the NXIVM cult. One of them I didn't like. One I did like is produced by Stars, because it actually provides a lot of background information, history, a little bit of history of cults and how they work and their indoctrination techniques and stuff. And in that documentary, an expert who had researched NXIVM mentioned that the cult's business model was, quote, dog shit. according to him, and it was only the
Cults not usually known for their business models generally.
But they often are. They do find a way to make money, and usually it's by milking the indoctrinated. And of course, it was the Bronfman money that let them grow to the heights they did. So let's be honest. If it weren't for the Bronfman daughters who had all this inherited wealth, they clearly did not know what to do with. Maybe there wouldn't be a NXIVM cult. Let's think about that for a little bit. So that's my take on Canada's failed children. The richest,
take.
Thanks. But there's lots to be said here. How do you feel about the rich families? I sent some articles.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about most of these families, right, is you'll notice that the patriarchs, generally speaking, are quite old. And I think that's the first clue. Look, are there some very young, very rich people? Yes, there certainly are. Most of those people tend to be in tech, right? So those millionaires and billionaires didn't exist because the technology didn't exist. But if you look at the truly kind of dynastic Canadian families, most of them got their wealth at a time when the economy was very, very different in, an unlimited number of ways than it is right now. And, came up and started their businesses and made their fortunes at a time when the world economy was as hot as it's ever been. And post OPEC crash, basically all the way through to 2008 was if you got together a decent business plan and were a bit savvy, you could become this rich or maybe slightly below this rich, right? So that's the first thing. Is I think a lot of people like to do the thing where it's well, rich people worked hard for their money, and it's up to their own individual striving that they were able to achieve this. And sure, maybe I'll give you a certain percentage of it in that, but I think a lot of this tends to be circumstantial. Even down to the individual circumstance of what business they started in what city at what time and all this type of stuff. But just broadly speaking, the economies that these people started their business in were so different than the economies that we find ourselves in now. And so That's I think just a troubling thing, generally speaking, is that we revere a lot of people who got very, very wealthy for, often, well, like all capitalism is, if you kind of take the view on how capitalism operates that we probably do, is inherently exploitative. But these people specifically just were around right place, right time. And did they have good ideas? I guess, but I would imagine that you could take the second, third, fourth best grocery store owners and business people, and if Mr. Weston was not around, they would have been exactly in the same place that he is now. So yeah, that point to begin with is just a frustrating thing, trying to break the public's perception that all these people, and this is not something that the average person has come up with themselves. They've been fed this information that these people are like uniquely gifted, and because of those unique gifts that they deserve all the wealth that they've accumulated, which is obviously not true.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just going to mention a few of these wealthy families. So we've talked about the Westons. I don't have the numbers here, but they are considered one of the wealthiest in Canada. Listed, their fortune grew by 1.6 billion since March, so 10 billion in total. The Globe and Mail, it's owned by the Thompson family. I guess they are technically the wealthiest family in Canada. They're up to 50.6 billion now. That's increased 9 billion just in the last few months. One of a different generation, though, a newer generation, Tyler, than you were talking about. Yeah, the old money here. It's not a family. It's this guy, Toby Lutke. I guess he's the CEO of Shopify. So he doubled his wealth just this year. Not surprising that a tech mogul is going to be pulling in.
Yeah, and specifically an online commerce tech company, right? Where everyone is now ordering so much more than ever before online, right?
That's right. 10 billion he's made just this year, doubled his wealth. He's up to 10 billion now. So he's doubled it this year.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know this. Did you know that Elon Musk has Canadian citizenship? So he's technically the world's richest, the richest Canadian. I didn't know this.
Yes, I did know that, but I think it's like one of those things like Steve Nash is Canadian, where it's like, just a kind of accident of timing and circumstance where like, for all intents and purposes, he's not Canadian, but yes, he does have Canadian.
Steve Nash isn't Canadian, really? I always thought he was.
Well, really, like technically, he's South African, which is funny because Elon Musk is the same. But
okay.
Yes, I mean Steve Nash is, but like, he's Canadian more in more of a way that Elon Musk is, I guess. But I think in the popular imagination, Steve Nash is just seen as like an American basketball player. Elon Musk is seen as like an American entrepreneur, right? But yes, technically these are Canadian citizens, right?
Right. He's also now either married to or he has a child with a Canadian, right? Grimes. Yeah. Yes. So I don't know how.
Now validating me for not really ever liking her music. I now am validated for never liking it, and it was for good political reasons and not because I just listened to death metal instead.
I pretended to like her once because I was trying to impress a girl, but it was, I didn't really mean it, and it didn't work anyway. So.
Yeah, no, you're good then. You're good.
And let's talk about. And there's also BC billionaire Jim Pattison. So he's made.
Yeah.
He's made, I guess, 1.7 billion since March. Now he's kind of dabbled in everything from grocery stores.
He's very old and insane looking as well, which like he looks like you think an old Canadian billionaire would look like.
Well, you're referencing yet another Bloomberg article here. There was a profile I sent you, right, of Jim Pattison. Yeah. He's 91 and worth billions. Jim Pattison is still hunting deals. Now he's
still looking for deals.
He also one of the worst when it comes to cutting pandemic pay, because he was the first apparently amongst all of these grocery store moguls to cut the pay back to its original, taking away the $2 bonus. He did that way back in May, apparently. So anyway, that's important frame here for talking about Jim Pattison. Yeah, I just want to say, like, mention he's talked about as Canada's Warren Buffett, but I think that's just because he's pretty old now, like Warren Buffett is. Some great
And I think
quotes.
he's invested in a lot of stuff, right? He doesn't have a specific industry. I think,
Oh,
you know, like most of these people, they tend their industry tends to just be like buying real estate, really. But yeah, he's got a whole bunch of, I think, companies that he owns, right?
yeah. Well, he said some quotes here from the article. Before the pandemic, he quote would have put 100% of our money into Great Wolf Lodge, but I wouldn't today. Do you know Great Wolf Lodge, Tyler? As a parent, you should
Well,
learn about Great Wolf Lodge.
it's like a theme park, right? Isn't it a theme park?
Yeah, it's like a hotel. It's like a
Yeah.
family style hotel that has a theme park in
Right.
it, like water slides and other like fun stuff in them. I know there's one in Niagara Falls,
Right,
you know,
right.
tourist destination like that.
I've never had the pleasure of going, but one day, once pandemic is over, I'll head right over there.
Well, you can thank Jim Pattison for that, I guess, when you do.
I will. I will
Send-
kneel down and pray to him when I arrive.
Send him a little note.
Yeah.
So, and here and this is kudos to the Bloomberg reporters who did this profile, because
Mhm.
they did point out like maybe some inconsistencies in Jim Pattison's stated priorities and what he actually was doing. So here's a quote from Jim Pattison. We have got to focus on the environment, Pattison said. Anything that is negative, in my opinion, to do with the environment is going to go out of business. Okay, then next quote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably right over a certain time period.
Yeah. And the next quote from Pattison. Yeah, the conviction. Sorry, this is that conviction wavers when it comes to the West Shore Terminals Investment Corp, the largest coal loading facility on the West Coast of the Americas. Oh, coal. All right. Quote,
Wow.
if people want to buy the coal, this is Jim Pattison, we're not selling the coal. We're a service department. If you like it, we're shipping it. That's not our decision. So he's not selling the coal. He's just shipping it, Tyler. That's
yeah. Give me a break. I'm just a middleman. A middleman. Don't shoot the middleman. Yeah. I mean, the thing with like all this stuff too, and with his point about like, oh, companies that aren't green are going to go out of business. Like, you know, he might be right, and hopefully he is right about that. But the thing is that like someone like him he's not motivated by any morality for these things, right? Like he's looking at it, and there's, you know, I can't remember what the company is, but there's a green tech company that just surpassed, was it Exxon? I can't remember, or Total, one of the big oil and gas producers in terms of market cap, I think. And, you know, these changes are happening. And yes, a lot of them are being spurred on very slowly, albeit by like changes in, you know, policy and public opinion. But these people, you know, are smart enough to know that this is the way the wind is blowing. It has nothing to do with the fact that they give a shit. Like Jim Pattison's going to be, you know, God rest his soul. He's not going to be with us for that long. So he doesn't care. Like global warming isn't going to affect him in any meaningful way. So it's not like he has a moral stake in green energy becoming a thing, but he's also just a person who wants to accumulate more capital. So that's the place to invest right now. It's getting hot.
That's a good point. I just want to thank Derek O'Keefe as well for his article in the Ricochet that runs down the wealthiest families in Canada. That was really helpful for this segment. So